guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for My Hero Academia Chapter 277. So right out of the gate, we check this is a very nice throwback, parallel, and just comparison to when Aizawa said that Izuku couldn't become a hero with his power. And now, in the present time, Izuku has reached a point where he's not only become a great hero, but using that exact same power, he saved his teacher. Like, he's mastered his power to the point where he was able to like pretty much now he's mastered his power where he can use where his power and his where he and his quirk are compatible, and he can use it to become a hero that Aizawa said he couldn't. And he used that power to save his teacher, the person who told him he'd have no future as a hero with that power. And again, it's like it's a situation where it's all come full circle now. In this one singular moment with Aizawa being saved by that very student Izuku, who's now far and away like mastered his quirk more than I think even Aizawa thought possible. But then again, that's of course Aizawa operating on the assumption that he doesn't know what Izuku's power is. And I guess talking about Aizawa specifically in this chapter, though, the chapter gives me, like, as you know, in the past couple chapters, I've been a little fearful that pretty much Aizawa is going to die. But with this chapter, I have less of a fear about that now. But at the same time, I am starting to notice a bit of a growing pattern with Aizawa right now, in the sense where he's overexerting himself and being forced to use his quirk to negate Shigaraki's power, which makes me think that by the time this is all said and done, no matter the outcome, I think Aizawa is either going to lose his eyesight, or they're just going to become so damaged he'll be unable to use his quirk. Which, yeah, if that happens, that would be even more insane than his death, because then that would pretty much put Aizawa in the exact same position that All Might is in right now. Like, it would be so freaking poetic. In some ways, it would be so freaking poetic if he ended up pretty much losing, if Aizawa ended up like losing the ability to even use his quirk, like just in the exact and the scenarios, if you really look at this scenario compared to the one where All Might had faced All for One, the scenarios are kind of very similar. So it would just be the most poetic thing if he ended up just pretty much losing. If in this battle he just ended up losing the pretty much ability to use his quirk and to protect his students. Because I think one thing that Horikoshi is really good at doing is showing how losing one's quirk can at times be both a bit of a blessing depending on perspective, and at the same time even worse than death sometimes. When someone loses their quirk, they feel that they eventually come to learn to accept it, but at the same time, to heroes like Aizawa, it's probably going to it might not affect him as much as All Might, because All Might dedicated himself to being like the symbol of peace. But with Aizawa, it's going to be a bit of a harsh blow for him, definitely, if he loses his quirk in this fight. Like, it would just be, again, the most poetic thing on the planet, honestly. Now, once again, from the top, we definitely need to talk about once again from the top, we definitely need to talk about Shigaraki, because as we see in this chapter, he was actually fighting back All for One's influence and practically making the quirk his own through sheer force of will. And the real scary thing about this happening is even this moment of of Shigaraki like pretty much saying, I'm not you, Master. I'm not letting you take control. I'm going to take control of this quirk and all that. Like the scary part about that is he even all for one probably even knew exactly how this would go, and this went exactly how he intended. Because if you think about it, pretty much since the beginning of the series, All for One has been nurturing and encouraging from Shigaraki's hatred, and he's been allowing it to grow and fester. And at first glance at something like that, for us, it was obvious that he did it because he wanted him to follow in his footsteps. But now what happened with Shigaraki in this chapter, it gives that whole new context, like with what he meant back then in terms of Shigaraki taking over his position, meant pretty much taking over the quirk itself and breaking away from his influence. That's what All for One has been building up this entire time, is that Shigaraki would eventually would harness the All for One quirk in such a way where he would break away from All for One entirely, and he'd make the quirk his own. That's kind of, and in some ways that's it's he pro and so yeah, it's really kind of scary in that sense, and the fact, and honestly, even just the fact that Shigaraki was even able to battle that back with his own willpower shows kind of the fruits of that labor. And everything that Shigaraki has been, everything that every bit of Shigaraki's hatred that's been allowed to fester and pile up throughout the series, it's a thing that's all been leading to this moment. It's something All for One has been planning since the beginning, and yeah, he truly has, at this point, Shigaraki truly has become the next All for One, except the All for One in his own way. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy, honestly. But of all the, it's but in some ways, I think that's kind of the most intriguing thing about Shigaraki to me, is that when we first see Shigaraki, he's kind of just this villain. He's just kind of like your standard everyday Saturday morning cartoon, I want to destroy everything kind of villain. But the level of development that Horikoshi has taken Shigaraki's character is actually kind of insane, if I'm being honest. Like just going from like the beginning of the series to now, Shigaraki's development at Horikoshi's hands has been insane. Like Shigaraki's development, and frankly a lot of the villains in general, really makes me realize that for as much as I'm sure that Horikoshi loves all his characters, heroes and villains, I think Shigaraki is definitely a case that shows that Horikoshi really loves dabbling with villains. Like, he really loves to develop the villains. Like, villains are like his favorite characters to work with, and I think My Hero Academia and Shigaraki really kind of show that, honestly. And then and even though it's a small moment, it is kind of interesting to see like Gran Torino's thoughts during this fight, because we definitely get the sense that even though there's a lot he won't say out loud, Shigaraki is actively someone he takes personal responsibility for. I think even more so than All Might, and in some ways he is kind of making, and in some ways just pretty much through him kind of realizing that, oh shit, I take responsibility for you, so I've got to end you completely, and you're a laughable excuse for basically for Shimura's legacy. All that basically tells him even though he's trying to break away from basically treating like Shigaraki like from Shimura's grandson, he still kind of is making very similar mistakes to All Might in some way. And of course, we have to be fair to Endeavor as well, because while his moments were definitely smaller compared to the others, I think this chapter showed just how much he takes his role as a new symbol now. And in some ways, this chapter proved how different he is from All Might. The one thing I think that's different that this chapter shows this difference between All Might and Endeavor is that All Might basically he saw himself as he had to be perfect. He always had to be like the perfect hero. He had to defend everyone at every time, every way. But with with Endeavor, we see that he kind of accepts his failures, but through those failures, he gets right back up. And as long as he holds on to that will to fight back, then he will be known as the symbol that brings hope to a world that needs it. So yeah, in some ways, I think that's what definitely makes him better is that Endeavor is actually actively willing in order to accept his failures, whereas All Might, not so much. I don't think he's willing to try and hide his failures. I think sometimes, but yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and others control. Dead Knight of me, signing off. Later, guys.